Record on this. Okay, so we are now recording. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight your face. I'm sure you love that. Okay. All right, boys. You guys are good to go. This person, I'm going to step across the hallway. You were in good and capable hands. Yesterday, the boys are going to sit here around me. Yesterday, the guys went through and they interviewed Joan, and she also sent over some of Diane Nash's stuff. She sent over some videos and a couple other things. She also sent along some of your pictures that you had previously used. And you will get a copy of this project or this documentary once it is said and done. So that the general idea and the reason why I have the boys, it's due the Monday we get back from winter break, which is 2 weeks from now. I'm going to have them have it done by then so I can send it to you and Joan so that if there's any tweaking that you guys believe should be done in order to properly tell the story and the juxtaposition of your stories, because there are, if you think in terms of a Venn diagram, and this is what I've tried to explain to them, you have your own individual stories, but then there's definitely some overlap.
Yeah.
So, all right, buddy. Well, thanks so much. And I'm going to step here across the hallway. You guys are on record, and boys have at. All right, who's going to be my lead this morning?
Over some.
Actually, really quick, this person, before we do anything else, boys, y'all smile. Okay. All right. Go ahead, boys.
Scoot in a little more if you want to. Hello. We are doing a documentary over the Freedom Riders for National History Day. We just wanted to, get a quick little interview in for, some information that we wanted. So Xander right here would like to ask you a question.
Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning. We are Coach Gardner's AP US History class. I have a question that'll start off strong, and it was, as a young man in the 1960s, can you tell us how the Congress of Racial Equality kind of like found you and they kind of like deemed you worthy as representing Atlanta as the representative of a Freedom Rider?
That's a good question. In 1960, after the sit-ins, the Congress of Racial Equality realized that there are a lot of young people who were trained in nonviolence. There was a pool of people, and they sent out a request for to be able to join the Freedom Rides. Well, no one knew what a Freedom Ride was in 1960, but we were anxious to fight segregation at any level. I was 18 when I was chosen, and I wondered why did they choose me? And I guess as I got older and older, and I realized that what they were looking for in participants were people who had no negatives in their background. I hadn't lived that long to get into a lot of trouble, so it made it easy for them to select me, because there were other people just as experienced, had been in just as many sit-ins and marches that I had, but they may have veered off track here and there. So I was squeaky clean, and I think that's one of the reasons they selected me as an 18-year-old.
All right. So how was it being like the youngest Freedom Rider? Was it like, one of those things where you felt like a sense of maybe I'm doing a change that is out of my power or something?
Well, at times I was reluctant, because a lot of the people who had been many more years as activists, they were more mature, they had experienced more things in life. Many of them had traveled extensively. And for me, I had never left the state of Georgia. So, for me, just even the bus ride up and down, just seeing places and doing things I had never done before in my life. So, but at times I felt that maybe I'm not adequate. Do I belong here? But after a while, I realized that we were a team, and we were all chosen because we meshed in such a way that we worked together. And the Freedom Rise lasted for over 8 months. We had no incidents of violence initiated by us, and those people who were injured were taken care of by those in our group.
Would you like to ask a question, Morgan?
Whenever after the Freedom Rides were said and done, I read that you became a Marine, or enlisted, and I wanted to know if you ever faced any backlash as you were in the Marines.
No, not real. I never felt any backlash back as a Marine, but my entry, I guess, my motivation. I guess you would say I have a military family. My dad served in World War II. We had an uncle who ran away to fight with Teddy Roosevelt at San Juan Hill, and he was killed in Cuba. And all the males in our family have served honorably, and several of us have made a career. I stayed for 20 years. But let me tell you how I got in the Marine Corps in the first place. Because I didn't tell my parents the whole truth when I became a Freedom Rider. And after the bus was burned, and after we were beaten, my mother was upset, and she knew after the trial and these men were released, they were exonerated for beating us and burning the bus. She suggested that I join the Army because she said I would be safer in the Army than staying in the Civil Rights Movement, because she knew that if I stayed, I would have continued. And as you know, in 62 and 63 and 64, things did get quite violent. You know, there were quite a few civil rights people killed during those years. So she was a lot prophetic, saying that I would be safer in the Marine Corps or in the service.
So whenever you were on the Freedom Rides, it was like very, very, put out there that Montgomery went very bad. Would you like elaborate on that?
Well, the Freedom Rides supposed to end it in Birmingham with us. But what the Klan didn't realize and what others didn't realize was the kids in Nashville under Diane Nash, they were preparing. They were well versed in nonviolence, and also they were prepared and ready to go. So after we were not allowed to leave Birmingham by bus, we had to fly out of Birmingham to get to New Orleans. They wanted the Freedom Rides to continue, and they were ready. And on May 20th, they entered Montgomery, and the Klan was really ready for them because they were out. The students were outnumbered 200, and there was 20 students, and there's 200 Klansmen. They attacked all the media people. They broke cameras. It was devastating, and that's why Montgomery was such an eyesore and such a real bad thing, because they thought it was going to end there. But what it did was it motivated the students. The students realized all over the country, hey, I want to be a Freedom Rider. Instead of doing an intern that year, a lot of kids, hey, I'm going to be a Freedom Rider. And that's how our numbers swelled from the original 13 until in the end, there were 436 Freedom Riders. 50% was Black, 50% was white, and 1/4 were women. And it wasn't planned. The only groups that were planned was our group of 13, and the second group out of Tennessee. All the others were just volunteers, people who just wanted to come together to be Freedom Riders.
Okay.
What were your emotions on your Freedom Ride, your first initial one? Because as a young man going through all of it, it's like a whole new experience, because like you said, you haven't been out of state or anything. It was a very big moment for you.
Well, for me, there are times I know I should have been afraid. Maybe I was just too young. Maybe I was just too stupid, but I know that they kept me going. But also, we prayed a lot. We prayed a lot, but like most teenagers, our prayers were very simplistic. Lord, help me. Lord, do not let me be afraid. Protect us. One-liners, nothing really drawn out like a Baptist preacher, but we were just saying, our talking to the Creator to protect us and to look after us and to keep us from being afraid. And I think it worked because in the end, like I say, we were able to stick together and we were able to help one another through all those ordeals.
So was there ever any mentor that kind of motivated you to initially join the Freedom Riders, or was it just out of your wanting to join the civil rights movement?
Well, mentors. Later, I acquired mentors. What started me off? I wanted to go to Georgia Tech, even though I had been accepted at MIT. Georgia Tech was closer and it was cheaper. In the 1960s, MIT was like $2,000 a year, and Georgia Tech was $375 a semester. They were on a semester system then. My dad worked 2 jobs, and he made less than $100. And when you got 5 kids who love to eat, somebody has to work. So if you do the math, it was even though, and also one of the things that hampered us, me in that area, is that the South didn't offer a lot of high-powered scholarships to go to those powerful schools, those big schools. I mean, we had, you get $350 or something like that, but for MIT, you got travel, you got lodging, you got to stay in a dorm. I mean, it would have been horrendous for me to try to do, but I would have loved to have gotten the opportunity. But I had scholar. I was a salutatorian in my class. My GPA was 3.82. So I felt academically, I felt well prepared, but the system was what prevented me from taking advantage of the opportunities that were available.
As you know, we interviewed Joan Browning, and she talked about her experiences, specifically in history class, with a teacher with a Confederate agenda. How did, on the flip side, your school experience go? What was history like for you?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems for Black kids in those days was realizing that you could learn. People would call you dumb and all this, but you were never afforded an opportunity to learn. In my school, I never had a new textbook. Even in a school, we survived on hand-me-downs. Our textbooks had another school's name in it. Many times the pages were missing. The pages are stuck together. It was just awful. Here you are trying to learn, and also you didn't have the newest edition. You would, after it was discarded by the white schools, high schools, then they would distribute them to us. So we were behind the 8 balls just starting off. But sometimes I think back at all the adversities that we had to overcome just to get a basic education.
So when you mention all of the racial inequalities that you were facing and all this, do you think that you becoming a Freedom Rider and being able to intertwine with all the different races that were integrated into them, would you think that it kind of made you feel like y'all are together finally?
No, what it taught me is that no matter how difficult the situation is, that there are a lot of good people in this world. I mean, I never met the James Peck and the all the people that I met on the rides. I didn't realize these people even existed. So, to meet people of a different race who we sat and we ate together, we talked together, it was just amazing interchange of ideas. For example, in those days, I was reading Nikki Giovanni, James Baldwin, and a lot of the other Black writers, Bridget Wright at those time. And my white friends were reading Camus, they were reading Nietzsche, and they were uh, uh, Kafka. These are folks I had never been exposed to. And all those books and those authors are my heroes because of the sharing of music, for example. I was I love jazz music, but I also learned the country and Western music. In fact, at one time in my life, I was a DJ for a country and Western group. So, I've had weird experiences, but it's been so much fun because you can't put me in one little box and say, that's Charles Person. No, I have a variety of experiences and I have a variety of friends. And like I say, what keeps me going is I know that there are good people all over.
Does it make you happy to see how far the civil rights movement has really came and how big the freedom rides really, like what exactly they did for the civil rights movement?
I think it was an eye opener, but what it really did, it just brought people together, college kids together. And that's where our education really began because, like I say, not only we shared food and, the differences. In other words, I don't know if you guys like different cuisine, but like you might like Mexican, you might like Italian. But the thing is, so someone who has not been experiencing these things, and so you invite them over, you have a potluck, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, that's pretty good, or the music, hey, I can dig that. So what I'm saying is, that's a part of the growth is sharing things that you think, well, maybe I don't like that, but then when you get involved, you realize that, wow, hey, I like that. That's okay. That's good for me. And you add that to your repertoire, whether it's some music, a wardrobe, clothing, dress, hairstyles. Today, I don't know if I could deal with today with the hairstyle, but hey, it's cool. If you like it, dig it.
So, how many total freedom rides did you go on?
Well, I was on the original, and like I said, our ride was abruptly ended in Birmingham on May 14th. Some of the others who were with us went back, like Hank and James Farmer. They went back and they were arrested. They spent time in Parchman. But here's what happened to me. The reason I didn't do any additional rides, like I said, there was a photo taken of me. I don't know if you've seen the one where in Birmingham where I was being in this crowd of people. Well, a photo was taken and the guys looked up. Well, that photo was taken by the FBI. They arrested the guys. They brought them to trial. I was subpoenaed and I went there to testify. And there was a trial for 2 weeks and they were all exonerated. So, this was happening while the other riders were getting started. And, after Montgomery, the night they were in the church and the people were bombing throwing rocks at the church and threatening to bomb the church. And Dr. King was there and he had become involved and he was there and he pleaded to the Kennedy administration to send some help because they didn't know if they were going to get out there. They finally sent military trucks to really get them out of the truck. Well, I was in town, but I was across town for the trial of the people who beat us.
So would you say that your ride really kickstarted the rest of the freedom rides and really fueled people's desire to join the movement and help it grow?
It did because, like you say, it was what started off of this 13 people. All of a sudden, you had a mass of people, and people. Here's what happened: they tried to increase the penalty for riders when they were being arrested. They increased the length of incarceration. They increased the amount of the fines. But it didn't stop them. People continued to come, no matter what they did. People continued to come. We had kids and we had ministers of all faiths. It was if you look at the composition of our group in the end, it was really, it was truly a cross section of America. So, well, like I say, and that was a plan. It's just people who on their own decided, hey, I want to be a freedom rider.
So when we interviewed Joan yesterday, she mentioned that ordinary people could make a change through the Freedom Riders. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, and you can change the world. It's amazing that we undermine our own strengths. And you and young students, you probably saying, well, I can't do that, or it won't make a difference. But it does make a difference. When like minds come together, you discuss something, you map out a plan, you strategize, you'd be surprised. Suppose you've got the food in the cafeteria is terrible, and you guys want to change it. You don't think you can do that? Yes, you can do it. You can make a change. I mean, even in the curriculum, if there's subjects you think should be taught, or if there's sports program that you think they need to be inaugurated, hey, working together, we can do anything. What happens in America? Think about it. You are in a unique situation. In America, if there's a tornado or a hurricane or any natural calamity, what happens? We roll up our sleeves, we go out there and we get the job done. It's like what's happening in the earthquakes. Even though it's far, far away, Americans will help get those people back on their feet. We'll send money, we'll send aid, and some of us will be able to go there. I had an interesting class yesterday with a school in Mobile, Alabama. And these kids are using a 3D printer to make a limbs for amputees. And the school allows them to go to South America once a year, and with their prosthetics that they have made with their own hands, and to deliver them to people. So these are young people. These are high school kids just like you. So you can do a lot more than you can imagine. Don't you feel that you're and the freedom ride gives you the thought that the freedom that, hey, we can do anything. And you, like I say, you can change the world. You will change the world.
So in our reading, in AP US history recently, we have read about how there was a Great Society reforms that were around like the 1964, like around that time after all the bad stuff was going on during the freedom rides and stuff. Did any of that kind of like benefit, or did you believe that that was like a pro of what you guys have done?
No, a lot of those things were a catalyst for us. Reason I say that in words, like when President Kennedy was inaugurated, he challenged the country, and he was young and youthful enough that we could identify with him, even though at first he didn't understand the problem, because see, a lot of the things that were happening to us, the country didn't know about. For the freedom rides, for example, most people didn't realize that we did not take chartered buses. We took regular buses like everybody else. But the main thing is we paid full fare. Why should we be treated differently if we paid full fare? It's like if you went down to a McDonald's and you order a Big Mac, their big burger, and you get it with no meat, yet still you're required to pay the regular price. I think you would be upset. And that's the kind of thing is for us, we demonstrated to the country the unfairness. In the Post House at the Greyhound restaurant, Black people were served through a cubby hole, which I don't know if you know what a cubby hole is, but normally it's like a 15-inch square inch hole that joined us to the main dining room. And it's like you would feed a pet through this cubby hole, yet still you paid the same price as the people sitting out there with white tablecloths in silver in China. So we had to demonstrate to the country that this is how unfair this is. You know, also people think that the Freedom Ride was not an act of civil disobedience. It was a test. It was just a test to show that there were states and cities that were not in compliance with the Supreme Court decision. So, there were times that we broke the law there because we knew, but this was not a case of that. We knew that the law was in our favor and we were only complying, and we were going to see if the states that we traveled to were going to do the same.
So, dang it, I forgot what I was gonna say. As oh, okay. No, I got nothing. Okay, yeah, I just blank. I'll come back.
What would you say to today's youth, from people who are fighting for their rights against Russia and Ukraine, or people who are fighting the CCP in China? What would it be that you would say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is, first, you must define who you are. Secondly, you should define what your organization is and what it's about. When you're demonstrating, whether you're marching or whatever it is, people need to know why you are there. And the reason you want that is when they know why you're there, then they can either become your ally and support you, or they can be against you. But the thing is, a lot of times we see demonstrations. Why are they there? Nobody knows. We've lost the ability to articulate what we're doing. You've got to let people know what you're doing. And I think you cannot survive in a social justice movement without allies. And what I admired the most during the George Floyd situation was the kids were able to put numbers in the streets that we could never. The biggest march I was ever in was like 5,000 people. And that was in one location. And I can remember the first time we marched into Atlanta. It was 2 by 2. It was quiet, and it got the people's attention because they realized that, hey, not only could we do it peacefully and quietly, but we were determined. We had numbers on our side. And if you go back and look at the George Floyd situation, it wasn't just one city, it was many cities where you had thousands of people. But the thing is, there was no cohesiveness or communication between one social group and another. And one of the things I don't know if you know much about Black Lives Matter groups, but the ones that I've had the opportunity to have conversation with is they lead by committee, and which means that's why you rarely see a press conference. Well, XYZ get out and they would tell you what they're doing. They are afraid that they're going to be killed, and that's why they changed the leadership. In other words, one day you lead, the next day I lead, and it varies that way because they are trying to prevent themselves from being killed. It's this when you're working for the type of projects that you're working on, it's dangerous, and you can be killed, you can be hurt. That's a given. And that's what you have to realize, that hey, this movement is bigger than I. This cause is greater than I. But I can make a difference. I will make a difference.
So we're about to have to start wrapping up, but is there anything like specific that we should probably touch up on on the Freedom Riders movement? Like anything specific we can add to our document to discuss?
Yes, start the conversation. See, in America, and in Georgia, in the South especially, we are afraid to discuss race. And we feel that you're going to get mad. There's going to be animosity. It doesn't have to be that. There are things that are going to be upset you. But hey, the idea is we got to talk through this. You got to understand where I'm coming from. I have to understand where you're coming from. And then we can go there together. But the thing is, many times we don't realize you don't know my pain, and I don't know your pain. So, but we have to reach the point where we can share these shared feelings, these shared beliefs, and if we work together, we can accomplish anything.
Well, that's about all the time we have today. We just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk with us and give us some information about our for our documentary.